Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to talk about my latest bourbon haul. What did I get? Stay tuned to find out. Welcome back to the Bourbon Retriever, where I go in the wild, hunt bourbon, and bring it back for you. Today we're going to talk about the latest bottles I was able to grab. These are in no particular order, but I will say I think there is a bottle in here that has a chance to be Whiskey of the Year. First off, we'll do good old Wild Turkey 101. This is a staple I like to have in the house. It's an all-around great pour. It can be a mixer, you can drink it neat. I think it'd be a great mixer for fall cocktails. Wild Turkey is known for their cinnamon profile, and that is a typical fall note. When I run out, typically I'll buy it in the 1.75 liter bottle. It's not pretty, but what I do is I will take this and I'll dump it into my 750 milliliter bottle. It looks better and it's also a little easier to pour out, but I buy it this size because it's a little cheaper when you buy it in this quantity. And you can't go wrong, I got this on sale. They had it for $35, which is just unbelievable. And if you break that down into a normal 750 milliliter bottle, we're talking like, what, $17? That is really hard to beat. Okay. Next up is an Old Forester single barrel pick. This one comes in at 126 proof. It is in Warehouse G, floor 4. I think I paid about $100 for these. That's roughly what these will go for, somewhere around $90 to $100. And these are all barrel picks. So these only normally show up when your store does a pick. I am personally not the biggest fan of these bottles. Most of the time for me, they're a little too ethanol forward, but this one is one of the best ones, if not the best one I've had. It is basically like an Old Forester 100. It keeps the nice flavor profiles you love from the Old Forester brand, but it proofs it up a little bit, give it a lot more viscosity, better mouthfeel, but it doesn't have the typical ethanol burn that you get from the Old Forester single barrels. I know these are really well loved in the community, so if you see one, it's probably a good grab just to try and see if it fits your profile. For me, I'm not the biggest fan, so I normally only get them when I run out. I had just ran out my last bottle, saw this pop up. They normally have a pretty good reputation, so I went for it and I like it a lot. If you can't find one of these, a lot of people will suggest the 1920. That is the higher proof shelf stable bottle you'll get from Forester. I'm personally not the biggest fan of it, but it'll give you the closest thing that you can get to this bottle. For my personal preference, I would recommend getting the Old Forester 100. I think Old Forester is the best when it's proofed at around 100 proof. I think some people at Old Forester believe that too. That's why the birthday bourbon a lot of times is proofed around 100 proof. And next on the list is also another store pick, and it is 1792 full proof. These, I haven't seen the shelf stable version in a while. I've only really seen these in store picks lately. These bottles are must buys whenever you see them. For around $50, you just can't beat them. You get that Barton flavor, which a lot of higher end bottles, they are distilled Barton juice. Typically they're older. This one it will be a little bit younger, but you get a lot of the same flavors and for a fraction of the price. I have a couple of these now, I think about 3 or so. I just love them so much that I have to grab one. If you see this anywhere under $55, I'd recommend you pick it up. I have never had a bad one, and I am always looking to get a backup. All right, the next on my list is gonna be a twofer. They are 2 Four Roses single barrel proofs. One is OESV, 10 years, 5 months, coming in at about 114 proof, tier 1. The other is an OBSV, 106 proof, also tier 1. I got both these for about $90. I've seen them go anywhere between $70 to $100. I haven't had many Four Roses single barrels, so I'm trying to collect them to try each different recipe. However, I feel like it's a catch-22. They are all single barrels, so it's hard for me to know when I'm drinking it if I'm liking that recipe or if it's just a really good single barrel. And also vice versa, if maybe it's a recipe I don't like, or maybe it's just a single barrel I don't like. Right now I have about 5 to 6 of the recipes. There are 10 of them. They come from 2 different mash bills and 5 different yeast strains. I'd say overall, Four Roses, while I enjoy them, aren't necessarily my favorite bottles. They taste a little flat and can be floral. I typically enjoy something that's a little more oaky, has more of the darker characteristics, more viscosity in the mouth, while Four Roses tend to be a little more floral and mellow. I have had some Four Roses single barrels that remind me of Buffalo Trace. They can get very sweet. There are also people in the community that will hunt certain tiers. These are both tier 1. Some people in the community love tier 6. They want the higher tier barrels because when barrels are higher in the rick house, they can have more angel share, which can cause the proof to get a little higher. Now, I will say the logic is reverse. If you see the shelf stable Old Forester single barrels, those are always proofed at 100. So if you're hunting those, I think you want to try and find tier 1 or tier 2 bottles because that means they had to proof it down less to get it down to 100 proof. So if you can find a tier 1 just regular single barrel from Four Roses, those are probably the ones you'll get the most flavor. Let me know in the comments which Four Roses recipe is your favorite. That way I'll know which one to chase in the future. All right, next on the list is an Eagle Rare store pick. I got it for about $40. Anytime you see Buffalo Trace products that are store picks, and if they're priced reasonably, which I would say anywhere about $5 to $10 above MSRP for a normal bottle, I would highly recommend getting them. Typically, the single barrels are much better than the traditional shelf products, and this one is no different. Eagle Rare is also one of my favorite of the traditional Buffalo Trace products. You know, that would be the Weller Special Reserve, Buffalo Trace, Eagle Rare, maybe even Blanton's. I think Eagle Rare is the best of those, and I was just super excited to find a store pick version of it. Eagle Rare is typically a little more oaky than the other entry-level Buffalo Trace products. It is a 10-year age-stated product, so that's why you get a little more oak. I don't know how true this is. A lot of people say the traditional Eagle Rares are single barrels. They just don't clean the pipe between barrels, so they can't legally call them single barrels. Anytime you see a store pick Eagle Rare under $50, I would recommend picking it up. Okay, next bottle on the list is Barrell Amburana. I did a review on this bottle not too long ago. I'll leave a link for it up here in the left-hand corner, right-hand corner, left-hand, over here somewhere. The bottle is coming in at 116 proof. It is 5 years old. The juice in it is from Kentucky and Indiana, and they made about 14,000 bottles. If you haven't had Amburana, or if you're not an Amburana fan, I would highly recommend trying to find a bar pour of this. This is probably the best Amburana bottle that I've tasted, and that's mostly because they have done a good job controlling the Amburana finish. What they did here is they put a blend into an Amburana barrel, and then afterwards they added more juice from other barrels that weren't finished in Amburana to help tone down the Amburana notes. It's a heavy, heavy cinnamon note. It can be overpowering on the palate and the nose, but they did a great job blending here to help mute that down a little bit to make it an overall great drink and well balanced. It is a very unique drink though, and not a bottle I would say that has traditional bourbon notes. So I would highly recommend you trying to get a bar pour first, but if you can't find a bar pour, if you can find this bottle for anywhere under $90, I think it's worth a try just to expand your horizons a little bit and just see if you might like Amburana. Okay, next on the list is another Buffalo Trace store pick product, and this is Weller Foolproof. This is the first Weller Foolproof I've been able to own. I have not seen the batch version of Weller Foolproof on the shelf ever. I have seen them do store picks of this bottle. Now the MSRP of this bottle should be, I think, roughly $50 to $60. You won't find that. I paid a little more for this bottle. They asked $150 for it. For my first time getting it, I was willing to pay that. Not sure I'll pay it for a backup or to get another bottle of it, but for a one-time purchase, it was worth it. It was well under secondary for this bottle, and it's something I just always wanted to try. I really enjoyed this bottle. However, I'm not sure if it's necessarily worth the secondary pricing that it's going for or the amount of time and effort it takes to get these bottles. For your dollar and time, I would highly recommend just getting the Weller 107. You're only losing about 7 proof points, but the flavor's there and it's just all around one of my favorite drinks. I'm still looking to get the Weller 12, the Weller Single Barrel, and the Weller CYOB. Not sure if any of those are really worth secondary, so I'm not sure if I'm going to get them anytime soon, but leave in the comments which of those you think might be worth grabbing. All right, next on the list is a Russell's Single Barrel. These are some of the best products on the market. If you ever see one, I highly recommend grabbing them. So Russell Reserve Single Barrels, they have them as store picks, but they also have just shelf versions that the distillery puts out. I would highly recommend grabbing the shelf stable versions. You can only find those for about under $60. Those are some of the best juice you can get for your dollar. They come in at 110 proof. It has a lot of the traditional bourbon notes. You got the oak, the caramels, the vanillas. At 110 proof, you get the viscosity and the oily mouthfeel that you would want in a bourbon. I think that 110 proof, 107, somewhere in there is the best proof for bourbon. It's proofy enough to get flavor, but also at the same time, it's not too proofy where you're just drinking pure ethanol. And if you enjoy those Russell Reserve single barrels that are about 60, next time try and level up and see if you can get a store pick. The problem with the store picks though is they normally are around 75 to 90, so you're paying a little bit more. If you can see if the store will let you have a sample of it to see if it's worth the upcharge, I would say most of the time it's not. I would just stick with the regular single barrel. But the specs on this bottle and the taste of it, I just had to buy it. It is a Camp Nelson bottle, which if you can find Camp Nelsons, those are some of the best, especially Camp Nelson F. This is a 10-year-old product. A lot of times the Russell Reserves, they're a little bit closer to 9 years or younger. And it's also a tier 6 bottle, so you get a lot more of that interaction between the bourbon and the wood. I got this on the lower end. I got this for $75. That was another reason I picked it up. I thought it was worth that $10 premium to a traditional Russell's single barrel. And I got it at BK Miller Meats and Liquors in Clinton, Maryland. Highly recommend you running out there and getting it if you can. I don't know how many more they have left of on them, but I know they're running short. Okay, next on the list, it is this year's Yellowstone limited edition in Tokaji barrels, coming in at 101 proof. It is a blend of 7-year, 13-year, and 16-year-old bourbons. I haven't had any of the other Yellowstone products, but I had this in a blind in a video where I challenged my dog to a bourbon guessing competition. I'll leave a link to that here. But I love doing blinds because it helps you understand if the bottle is something that you would actually enjoy drinking. It takes all the bias out of it. And I rather enjoyed this. I enjoyed it enough that I went out and bought it. The stores around me had it for about $130. I was out at Angel Share picking up actually the Barrell Amburana, and I saw it on the shelf for $100. And when I saw it for that price, I just couldn't pass it up. I really enjoyed it, and I think it's worth that $100. If you're a person who doesn't traditionally like finished bourbons, I would recommend getting this bottle. You can't really tell that it's finished. And whilst it doesn't tell you the percentage breakdown between the 7, 13, and 16-year-old barrels, I think this might lean closer to the older barrels because it tastes much older than a 7-year-old product. So while the Yellowstone LE won't get as much hype as the other LEs, I really think this might do well at the end of the year blinds. And while it only comes in at 101 proof, the amount of flavor you get in this bats much higher. Next bottle on the list, Elijah Craig Barrel Proof C923. This was probably my most anticipated bottle of the year. Elijah Craig Barrel Proofs are my favorite porters you can get on the shelf. The flavors you get are just quintessential bourbon, and they're some of the best values you get in bourbon. The batches are typically somewhere around 12 years, and you normally get them for about $70, which is just, in this bourbon economy, just ridiculous. The reason the C batch is so highly sought after this year is the proof is much higher than normal. It's coming in around 133 proof. The last couple of batches have been in the 120s. The other reason it's highly sought after is the age. It is coming in at 13 years, 7 months. The past batches have been 12 years, and the one before this was 11 years. It'll be interesting to see how this does at the end of year blinds. A lot of people on YouTube are saying it is Whiskey of the Year contender. I'll probably put a video of this shortly, so I'll save my opinions for that video. It'll be interesting to see going forward what Elijah Craig does with the age statements. They took away the 12-year age statement. The first one out was 11 years, this is 13. It'll be interesting to see, like, will maybe the A batch will always be 12, the B batch maybe under 12, and the C batch will be higher. Will they do something like that pattern? Will it be more variance? Will they stick around the 12 years, or will some years it be closer to like 10, some years maybe higher 14? As long as they keep it around 12 or have batches that are much older than 12 like this one, I think the bourbon world would be very happy. I wish Heaven Hill would tell us the ages on past batches, just because they had the 12-year age statement. Some of those batches could have been older than 12 years. We just don't really know. They probably just kept it as a marketing standpoint. It's really hard to change the labels, so they just kept it at 12. But some of those batches, they could have been close to this age statement. But I'm so excited I got this bottle. I hope many of you out there can also get this bottle. Elijah Craig normally does pretty big releases. I know it's flooding the Virginia market. It hasn't really hit the Maryland market yet. I know some sections of the country, the distributors haven't been able to get out the C batches because the warehouses are full of the B batches. And the B batch has been very slow moving this year, mostly because of the age statement and people are waiting and saving the money for the C batches. so maybe a little bit longer for some of those areas to get the C batch. But Heaven Hill does have a ton of juice, and these are normally pretty big batches, so fingers crossed for you guys out there that you'll be able to find it. Okay, I got 2 bottles left. Both of these are hitters. First one we'll do is the Old Fitz 10. This is my first Old Fitz decanter bottle. This bottle is 100 proof. They're all bottle and bond, so they are all 100 proof. And this year is the 2023 Spring Edition 10-year age-dated product. This is my first Old Fitz decanter bottle. It is a bottle I've always really wanted because I think it's just one of the best packaging there is in the game. When this bottle is empty, I think this is going to be just a really great decanter to have on the shelf. That said, the juice inside is not always the best. It is 100 proof, so I don't expect it to have the mouthfeel or viscosity, which I would normally get and enjoy from barrel proof products. The other thing I was a little disappointed in is it was $140. That's a little higher than they've done for past releases. The past releases have been about $10 a year. Like the 17 was 170, the 19 was 190. Coming at 10 years, this one should have been, $100. I did pay the 140 because I wanted to have one Old Fitz on my shelf. I'm not sure I'll buy it back up. We'll see though, I haven't opened this yet. I may enjoy it a ton. The Old Fitz brand itself has a really cool history. I highly recommend you guys, if you are bourbon nerds, go look it up and read about it. It's really cool. I got this bottle in the Virginia drop. In the past, Virginia has been doing random drops across the state, random days of the week, random times of the day. But this year they did a big drop across the whole state. Every store had at least 100 bottles, but at the drops they didn't tell you which stores were getting which bottles. I went to my store. I had a couple bottles on the list I was hoping to grab, either maybe the Parker's Heritage Rye, this, maybe a Stag, Russell 13, Elmer T. Lee. They had a couple of decent bottles on the list, but I didn't know which ones to be at which store. When I got to the front of the line, I had the choice between the Old Fitz 10 or the Parker's Heritage Rye. If you guys are the front of the line, which one would you guys pick? But I'm excited to crack it, see how it tastes, and see if it's worth that $140. Now, before we get to the next bottle, if you're enjoying this content, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. That way you don't miss any future videos. Additionally, I'm a small channel, trying to get to 1,000 subs. That way I can do a live stream with you guys and just have a good time with the community. Hey, last bottle on the list, and probably the bottle I was the most excited to grab, and it is the Jack Daniel's 12. It is coming in at 107 proof and is the oldest age-stated product Jack Daniel's has put out in quite some time. My buddy got a bottle of this, we opened it, and I'm telling you, this is the best whiskey I have tasted this year. And I am 95% certain when we put this at the end of the year blinds, it is going to beat almost every bottle. Many YouTubers out there are saying the Michter's 10 bourbon is better. I have been fortunate enough to get both the Michter's 10 bourbon and the Jack Daniel's. I prefer the Jack Daniel's 12 more. However, the Michter's 10 bourbons, they are all single barrels, so there might be some variance, and maybe I just didn't get the best single barrel. I do have a batch A, and many people are saying the batch A's are the best of the Michter's, but we will see at the end of the year. I will be putting both in the blind, and we'll see which one takes the crown. The Jack Daniel's 12, secondary, they're coming in around $250. I would recommend paying the $250 for them. I do not say that lightly, and I also don't recommend that for many bottles. $250 is a lot of money, but I don't think you can get a bottle for that price with this flavor. A lot of people are turned off just from the label Jack Daniel's. They think Jack Daniel's, they think Old Number 7 is probably not good, but I am telling you, the stuff that Jack Daniel's is putting out right now is phenomenal. I can't wait to see their later releases when they get higher up in age. Right now I only have one, the Jack Daniel's 12, but I'm looking to get backups if I can. So those were the bottles that I've been able to collect recently. Leave in the comments if you'd like to see reviews of any of the bottles from the bottle haul today. But before you leave, check out this video or this one, and until next time, cheers.